Hey everyone, I'm Melissa from Knitting the Stash, and this is episode 128 of the series, and we have a special guest today.
Hey!
Because this one's called Spencer Buys a Sweater Kit and Other Tales of Woe.
Oh, you named it after my...
I did, after your
fiasco.
experience. Your fiasco, that's right, there's always a fiasco.
I got a little story to tell.
Okay, but I also have a story to tell about my sweater that I had to completely unknit, rip out. So it's not just your tale of woe. But it's coming along. It's not just your tale of woe.
It's a woe tale.
It's a woe tale.
But that sweater's coming along now.
Yeah.
It's a lot better.
Okay, we have to do some little intro-y stuff, right?
This is Melissa.
I run a website called knittingthestash.com.
She sells yarn.
I do, and classes. I'm working on a clone class right now. And I was talking to the ladies.
Sweater cloning.
Sweater cloning.
Not just cloning.
Not just like human or animal cloning, I promise. Mostly.
Sweater cloning.
I was talking to the people on Zoom, our Zoom group, yesterday, and I was mentioning that some of them were mentioning like that they have sweaters that they love, but then they, they can't find sweater patterns that they like for the things that they've bought from stores. And anyway, so the sweater cloning class is coming along. I'm working on lesson 4 at this point, so we're getting there.
Now, in most clone narratives, the clones lack like a soul or a heart.
These sweaters are given a heart. It's like the Tin Man or the Cowardly Lion or something.
They're not sort of lacking the essential thing
better.
of the original? Okay.
They're better because you've taken control of your knitting, and then they're like hand knit.
Excellent.
So they're like,
Okay, cool. So they're not just, I am a clone of the original sweater?
No.
That's a robot. That'd be like a clone robot.
That's clone robot. Yeah, we've really mixed a lot.
Okay.
Not even metaphors, just so many. It's just we've gone off the deep end.
So you got classes on your website. You got yarn.
Yep. And
you got tools and hardware.
No, that's your department.
Lumber.
No, but we do have a Zoom Cal, so if you're interested, it's I'm not sure how much longer we'll go with it. Probably at least through the summer, and I think we'll keep the Zoom thing going in one capacity or another. But the Cal right now is anyone who's knitting sweaters. We keep it pretty open around here. So this is the first or 51st Sweater Cal. So if you're knitting your first one, or you're an experienced knitter, we're all helping each other. So we're meeting on Zoom on Saturdays. There's a Ravelry thread. Everybody's over there sharing their finished objects and asking questions, and it's pretty fun. So, yeah. I think is that all the stuff that we usually talk about today?
I gotta tell you my story.
I think we're ready.
All right,
we're ready for Spencer's story.
Okay, so Melissa had a birthday.
Yeah.
She might have kept this private or whatever, but she had a birthday a while back, a few weeks ago or something. And I want to tell you how old she got and all that.
And he got me catnip.
Yeah. Okay, so I got her some catnip for her birthday, because that's what you do.
We have little outdoor cats, and they are really sweet, and I love to spend time with them. So that explains the catnip, but it's also...
So then I went through the litany of other things she might need, like a new riding mower, maybe a fishing boat.
Vacuum cleaners,
stuff like that, stuff for around the house, tools and stuff.
Right. Luckily for me, he settled on sweater yarn. And he didn't tell me about it. I had no idea because he
settled on sweater.
Look, you bought me sweater yarn once before. Okay.
I did?
For a birthday, a couple birthdays ago.
This is a repeat?
And it was a beautiful yarn from Japan for the Hikari
that was
sweater.
the birthday.
It's beautiful.
Okay,
I love that. I knit the sweater. It was perfect. Loved it.
Okay, so
but I picked it out.
Yeah, I think you sort of held my hand on that one.
So this year.
Okay, so on that previous one, she said, "Hey, I need this yarn from Japan and this cool store," and I went on the website and I bought the yarn, and I was like, awesome. it was like I can't remember the money, but it was like $100 or something. And then I got an email. Have to pay shipping from I got an email. Hey man, you got to pay shipping, and it was like another $50.
This was before.
But then it was like too late to go back on the deal. I had already told her I was gonna do it, so I ate the $50 and I got her the yarn. I didn't complain about it until right now.
Right. I've never actually heard this before. But this was before the Parade yarn had Amir, so you had like a U.S. affiliate where like they sell yarn in the U.S. now. But at that point, you had to buy it from Japan.
Really cool stuff. Amir.
Beautiful. It was like a blend of like linen and wool.
Okay, but that's not my story. All right, so
this is a tale of woe.
So here's what I did. All right, I got into this. I was like, I'm gonna go into Ravelry, and I'm gonna find one of her favorited patterns, which she's always scrolling through all the time. Just like, look at my favorite. She'll show, look at my favorite patterns, and I'll just looking at them and stuff.
But this,
So okay, so I go into Ravelry, and I find her page. I type in knitting the stash, and it's like really weird. The page I find just has a couple things you've designed, but but I can't find any of your favorites, anything you've knitted, anything like that.
Now we went on the site since then.
I couldn't see any of it.
Showed him how.
So that was a brick wall. Like, nothing happening.
This is for all the partners out there who are buying yarn for someone. Or friends, family, mothers,
It was
brothers.
confusing and opaque.
You found Ravelry opaque.
Okay, so then I remembered the
First
name of one of the designers she's always talking about.
We all love Isabell Kraemer.
Isabell Kraemer. Now, I couldn't spell it, all right? I was like, Kraemer with an E and A, Isabell with a couple L's, like whatever. So I finally found that. Then I was like, oh, but every time I would do this, I'd be on my laptop and she would like come in the room and I would, switch tabs.
So I didn't realize it was my fault.
She made it hard.
It was,
So I'd switch tabs over to like Instagram and looking at like, tree cutting videos or whatever.
Right.
Anyway, okay, so I find Isabell Kraemer. I know you haven't knitted all the sweaters by Isabell Kraemer because she has designed a ton of stuff.
150 something at this point, I think.
All right, so I forget what Melissa was doing, but I think she was at her grandma's house. Yeah,
probably.
She goes to her grandma's house once a week.
We play Rummy Cube. It's really fun. She wants to learn to knit, by the way, so I might be treating my grandma to knit this winter. Yeah. Sorry, that's interrupting your story, though.
No, whatever.
Okay, so I was gone.
That'd be a good story.
Yeah.
All right, so she's gone, so I dig through her sweaters. I'm digging through all the sweaters she's knitted.
So you went through the bin?
Yeah, digging through the bin.
How'd you get to the bin?
It's right there.
Yeah,
it's just big. Okay, so I'm digging through the bin to try to see which sweater she's knitted. Now...
You could go...
I couldn't figure it out. Well, I could have seen it unravel me, but I couldn't find... Anyway, I couldn't figure it out. They're all looking alike, figuring out which... I'm trying to put them back the right way and fold them and stuff. I had to figure this stuff out. I didn't want to buy you the yarn for a sweater you'd already knitified.
Well, that would actually be okay.
I
knit things over and over again.
would be okay. Would you remember it?
Probably.
You'd remember it, all right.
Okay.
All right, so that didn't work out.
That didn't help. That was the second brick wall.
So,
third brick wall?
So
how many are we at this point?
It's a lot of brick walls.
Yeah.
The moral of the story, if you're not going to listen to the whole thing, is that it's dang hard to buy stuff for knitting folk. It's just not easy.
Expect. Okay, so this made me think because
It's not just like you can just buy the yarn for a sweater.
We expect that our dream as knitters or crafters is like that someone would go out and know exactly what to buy and buy it for us. Like,
there's no way to know.
It's your perfect sweater. But it turns out it's actually really pretty difficult.
So then I find the Isabell Kraemer patterns I like. I find some funky, like asymmetrical. She's looking all cool and stuff. And I know you haven't knitted it.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, I'll just go buy the yarn, and it just. You find in the middle of the Ravel Me page, like, the name of the yarn.
And of course...
And it's, like, I don't even know what that is. So then I'm Googling it, I'm on some Britney Spears website, and then, like, another day goes by. It just gets wacky.
So the thing about
you can't just click the yarn and buy it.
That he might not have known is, like, since she's based in Germany, a lot of the yarns she uses are, like, European yarns or German yarns. So if you're going to knit something... I've never actually been able to knit something
I'm the guy who managed
to
buy the Japanese yarn to begin with.
I always have to sub my Isabell Kraemer yarns, like almost always.
Okay, so he
didn't know that.
No, I didn't know a lot of stuff.
Now you know more.
Okay, so then I'm wiggling around on Isabell Kraemer's different patterns, checking them all out.
So you find the two that you like, you go to the yarn.
No.
Oh.
Then I see that she has this thing called a kit. She sells kits where you just
She doesn't sell the kits so much, but someone
she doesn't do it.
No,
somebody does it.
The yarn company. Millie's joined us, so Millie is in need of a little bit of loving.
So if you're a little bit behind the ball, you can just buy the kit. So that's what I did. I found two sweaters, sweaters,
Forager, and Snedronningen.
Snedronningen. Which were, they look pretty good. They weren't, the coolest, but they were kitified.
They're great.
So then, I don't even know what happened next. I mean, basically, there's just all these different yarns you have to choose from. You don't just get the yarn. There are these sweaters that have, 3 or 4 different yarns.
So your assumption was that if you went to get the kit...
You just buy the kit.
You buy the kit. Like, in the size. You'd be like, small size, medium size, large size, whatever, just buy the kit.
And there were sizes, but there were, 6 of them. So I just kind of went for, a middle size, thinking you get a little extra.
That's a general rule. Yeah. Okay.
And then I think I chose some colors, but did I choose those colors? I don't know.
You chose colors. It's true.
I got a couple weird colors.
Okay.
Anyway, so then the apologies started. Before
there's no need to. It's so sweet.
But there was some wacky stuff in there.
So sweet. It was the sweetest thing ever, and I told him that. But he feels like this like inner, I don't know.
The need to talk.
Yeah, just like, I think it was traumatic, so that's why he needed to come on the podcast.
It needs to be easier. Some entrepreneurial folk out there need to figure out a way to make it super spiffified.
Yeah, because once he got to the kit, it was it in German? Did you have to Google Translate it?
No.
Okay, it wasn't in German at least. That's good. But it was one of those, one of the sweaters was a sweater that has yarn held together. So he was like, why am I buying 4 yarns instead of, because it was a colorwork sweater with yarn held together.
But then I think I just got the same-ish colors for the ones that you hold together because you like that.
Yeah, that was good.
That worked out okay.
You did a good job with that. And then the other one.
Then I thought I got cashmere. So
the other one.
bragging about it.
Yeah, he was like, I got cashmere, and like the yarn did arrive, and I was looking and I was like, I didn't get the cashmere. That's interesting. So what did you get?
A little disappointed.
No, I mean I like cashmere just fine, but I've knit a cashmere sweater, but it's not like I like other stuff too. So the yarn he actually got was this fox meets merino yarn, and so this is a Coburg fox sheep, which is this rare breed. It's not even in the, breed books or anything. You have to look it up online. It's this very rare breed in Germany.
I did this intentionally.
I was like, this is the coolest thing ever.
And you looked it up?
I looked it up. We found the Coburg sheep, fox sheep. Beautiful. You can see why they call them fox sheep. I'll show you the picture. They are... Millie. So I can show you why they call them fox sheep. When they're little, they look just like little foxes. Like adorable little baby foxes. So
that's a cute sheep.
It's a really cute sheep. Yeah.
Pretty much raised in Germany.
Raised in Germany, and they were almost they almost died out right around the time of World War II because of the National Socialist Party and all the eugenic beliefs and breeding and purebred stuff and animals and everything. So sadly, these sheep were almost exterminated, but now they've made a comeback a little bit. They're still on the list of endangered sheep breeds. So anyway,
so I
he got that yarn.
Like the yarn from a persecuted sheep breed.
So cool. But he was very confused why he didn't get cashmere.
I'm still confused.
So I went on the website to check it out, and it turns out that there are 2 kits for this particular sweater. This is the
2 kits for the same sweater?
Forager sweater. There are 2 kits. The first one is the cashmere. The second one is with this fox sheep. Fox sheep.
I bet I cheaped out and got the cheaper one.
No. I don't think so. No, because it's like this organic rare breed sheep. It's really cool. You did the cooler thing, I think.
I think it's really hard to find the yarn for a sweater.
Especially,
and even for knitters and stuff?
It is for knitters, and it's, for someone who, about knitting.
For someone like me, it's really hard.
You know about knitting, though.
But even if you go into Ravelry and you know about it.
It's hard.
Is it tricky?
It's tricky. Yeah, especially if you can't get the yarn.
Translate between...
Like, for me, I don't usually, if it's going to be a yarn that I have to ship from Germany, I don't often do that because, nowadays with shipping and everything, it's pretty expensive.
More expensive.
So thank you for that.
Yeah, but I was desperate. I mean, at that point, the birthday's like 2 days away.
Oh, so you sub your yarn.
You substitute it, but you're trying to get something that kind of matches.
Yeah, so I just did a video on this. Good timing.
Probably because you have to do it.
You have to. You have to do it so often. So I put up a video about, I think it's 5 keys to yarn substitution. So things like the yarn composition, the fibers, cashmere versus fox sheep, or the construction. So that cashmere yarn is actually a chainette yarn.
Chain plied?
Not chain ply, but a chainette yarn. Which looks like a little crochet chain.
Chainette.
Versus I think the yarn that you got is like a 3-ply, so it's different construction, but they have kits for, but it's very interesting.
Huh.
And then things like grist, so like comparing apples to apples, like meters, how much yardage you have per pound, so you're trying to compare them across yarns, and then color and
basically,
availability and stuff like that.
All that boils down to is you want it to be about the same thickness.
About the same grist, yes, thickness.
Gristness.
Yeah.
Grist and thickness aren't the same. Not quite. Because something could be kind of big but fluffy.
It could be like heavy.
Instead of dense or whatever.
Yeah, the density could matter. So that's, But it's it's hard for knitters too. I think it's hard for all of us.
Traumatizing would be the word that came to mind for me. Not interesting. There was really nothing interesting. It was more just like...
For me it's interesting. For him it was traumatizing. So if you've ever been online trying to find like a sweater's quantity of yarn and had trouble, even if there was a kit on offer, then Spencer's pain.
Next year for the birthday, it's going to be a riding mower or a new set of skis or like something.
How about I just leave little clues around, just like the copies of pattern,
that would be fine.
Gee, this would be great in X yarn. Just kind of like leave the little leaflets around the house.
Always good to leave clues.
Yeah. So do you feel like you've...
No, it was fun. I was just kidding around.
I ended up with a beautiful box of yarn.
There's some yarn. You'll do something with it.
It's pretty.
One of the color contrasts was kind of weird.
I feel like you need to show it a little bit.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay.
Let's do it.
So I want to show the fox yarn first because it's so cool. This is the Coburn fox sheep yarn, and they describe it as a kind of rustic yarn. So Spencer was a little disappointed because it has like black hairs in it, but that's just Kemp, and that's something you read about. If you read about the breed of the sheep, they just happen to have some Kemp hair, like it's just little hairs, kind of. Yeah, like a guard hair kind of. But it can do really interesting things with the when you dye it, because if you have a kind of black guard hair in there, black Kemp in there, sometimes it can take up dye slightly differently. So anyway, I love the color of this. This is gonna be a beautiful sweater. And the kit actually called for it to be held double with this is all Nature's Luxury with their silk.
Those match pretty good.
So they match pretty well. That'll be a really pretty sweater. So thank you, I love
One's
that
just a little fuzzier.
That's the mohair though. It's pretty. Mohair and silk. And it's purple.
The hair of the mo.
It's perfect. And then the other one is... Millie's like...
The other one is not... So that's the one that wasn't the cashmere?
That was the one that wasn't the cashmere. And then the other one is singles yarn, and this one is wool and silk and camel, and it's a singles yarn. This is for a colorwork sweater. So he got like a darker blue, almost like a navy or a slate blue, and then a cream kind of color.
At this point, Melissa said, "I've never knitted with camel before."
I've never knit with camel before, so I'm pretty excited about this. And I like a good singles yarn. I just did my Nacre, my Isabell Kraemer pattern in a singles yarn that I like.
Doesn't singles not have as much boing boing?
It doesn't have necessarily as much strength. It's not plied and whatnot, and it can bias, but I really do. I knit a bunch of sweaters with singles yarn. I have a video about that as well, and it's a good... I've liked it.
There we go.
And it's really good. So thank you for my sweaters.
It was fun.
It was great.
It was a great
It was such a nice surprise. Like I did not expect him to do sweater yarn or sweater patterns. So,
wow. But
cool.
Yeah, okay.
I'm sorry about your trauma though.
It was fun. What else are you doing on the cast?
I'm going to talk about my other tale of woe, which was completely ripping out the sweater.
You've done that before now.
I've actually re-knit entire sweaters.
It seems like it's part of the thing.
The cashmere sweater, actually, I talked about this on an old episode. I was knitting a sample cashmere sweater. It was actually going to be a gift. Yeah. And so I was knitting. I felt pretty honored. I was knitting the sweater. But my gauge was off by one stitch, and it ended up being a little bit too big. Yeah. Just a little. Like a half inch, and it was just too much. So I pulled the whole thing out and redid it, and it came out just perfect. And this was partially because there wasn't a lot of that yarn left. It was one of those projects where June Cashmere Amy sent me the yarn from June Cashmere, and was like, okay, this is all we have in this color. It's the color she wants for the sweater. And anyway.
So you've reknit things before. It's just part of the game, I guess. It happens.
It's fine. And
all right, so you're talking about that?
Yeah.
All right.
And that's about it, I think. But I'm
going to leave you to it.
Okay.
Thanks
for
having
coming
me
on the cast.
See you later, everybody.
So I'm guessing a lot of you can sympathize with what Spencer went through to try to find a sweater quantity of yarn, even though he was looking at a kit. It's just one of those things for knitters, new or old, like no matter how long you've been knitting, if you're looking for a substitute for a specific yarn, it's just a tricky process to go through, and it helps if you know some of the things to be looking for. So I do have a video up about that one. It's just called 5 Keys to Yarn Substitution, and if you're interested in figuring out what are the key things to help you figure out how to substitute those yarns, that video should help you. I'm pretty excited that I finally got that one together. And actually the sweater I want to talk to you about today, my other tale of woe, the sweater that I had to rip out, is the Nacre sweater by Emilie Lewis. And this is a relatively recent pattern, I think. It's just come out, I think, relatively recently. And it is a Henley, and that's why I've got these 2 clips here, just so you can see there'll be a placket here that goes together with a button band that goes up the front. But in her sweater, she knit it with holding 2 yarns double, and they're these beautiful French yarns. But because of shipping costs and other things, they're not available in the US to me very readily. So I decided to sub in my yarn, and I wanted to hold 2 yarns double, and I tried to find yarns that had very similar grist and composition and things like that. And I ended up with the Bichet Boucher yarn. They're Le Petit Silk and Mohair, which is this really pretty, I love this color, it's like a kind of like slatey blue, and this is what is this? It's 30% silk and 70% mohair, and I'm holding it with the Le Petit Lambswool, which is a blend of lambswool. So it's soft and kind of rusticy feeling. It's a 2-ply, I believe, and I went ahead and got them in a similar color because I like the way that looks for this particular sweater. Sometimes, like with my Parks and Rec pullover, it's fun to marl them a little bit, so you get a lighter contrast, or a lighter mohair to hold together with your wool, and then you get a little bit of a marling effect. In this case, they blended really beautifully, I think you can see, and you get this kind of more solid or semi-solid kind of effect in the finished fabric. So I was going for that this time around. But subbing these was not super easy. Like, I had to know what I was looking for and did a lot of research on Ravelry and then on the websites for the different yarn brands, and came to the conclusion that this would work out. And that's not my tale of woe. The yarn is working out beautifully. I just did not do what I always recommend doing, which is I swatched, but I didn't really swatch. Like, I swatched, but I didn't wash my swatch, and I didn't really like measure it all the right ways. I was just kind of like a little cavalier about the whole thing. And I knit the correct size, like I chose the correct size for the pattern, but then once I got to almost the end of the increases, it's a top-down sweater, I thought to myself, oh no, it's not going to be big enough. You know, this is just one of those things that I always tell myself about my sweaters. I'm like, oh, it's going to be too small and it's not going to fit right, I'm not going to have enough ease, you know. And I think this might be a throwback to like when I first started knitting sweaters and I sometimes wouldn't have enough ease. So it's kind of one of those things that's stuck with me in my mind. Like, I'm always like, oh, did I knit it big enough? Did I knit it big enough? And in this case, I went ahead and added, I want to say I added 36 stitches. So actually there were 32 stitches because I added 4 increase rows and there were 8 increases in each row. So I added 4 extra increase rows for a total of like 32 extra stitches. And by the time I got down to the ribbing, which is where I'd knit all the way down to the ribbing, I just finally was like, I should try this on. And I put it on, you know, an extra set of needles, like I have it here, and I put it on, and it was very clear that there was about 7 inches of extra fabric that I didn't need in like around the midsection. So I mean, sometimes you can let that go, but sometimes you can't. So I just ripped it out, and I ended up having to rip it out all the way back to where the increases were, which is up in the yoke. So, you know, well before the sleeve division and before the Henley division, all the way up here, I think so if it was 4 increase rows, that meant 8 more rows up into the yoke. So I was pretty much up here where I ripped back to, and I had even more than this knitted at the time. So yeah, I mean, even I guess the moral of the story is that even experienced knitters can just totally misjudge or misgauge a size, or panic about a size, or not try it on. It's a top-down sweater, you know, it doesn't take much to throw it on some waste yarn or some extra needles and try it on and see how it's fitting. Again, I've had this on the podcast before, I'll say to you, you know, I'm TV knitting, I'm knitting in meetings, I'm just knitting because there's other stuff going on, and I'm not like, I don't need to check this, it'll be cool. But always check your knitting, it's just a good idea. So if I had tried this on a little bit earlier, I would have caught the mistake. But you can see here, my mannequin is about the same size as me, I think. I've never officially measured her, but I think she's about the same size. And you've seen sweaters on her before that fit me. So you can kind of see the fit is going to be good. I'm not worried at all about it. And there's a little bit of extra fabric, you know, but that's ease, you know, this kind of couple inches of ease all the way around. I think I'm going to end up with about a 37 or 38 inch bust, something like that. And my actual body measurement is more like a 34. So that gives me 3 or 4 inches of ease, which is usually a good amount for the sweaters that I go for. If you're ever wondering about that, like how to guesstimate how much ease you actually like in a sweater, grab some sweaters that you've knit or that, you know, are from your closet from big box stores. Measure them. Don't just measure your own body, you know, like do measure your own body, but then measure the sweaters that you like, because you'll find that the difference between them is gonna give you the amount of ease that, you know, in general maybe you like. So if your favorite sweater out of your closet, it measures in at, you know, 44 and your body measurement is 38, then you probably like 6 inches of ease, give or take, right? Maybe you could rock 4, maybe you could rock 6, just depends on, you know, what kind of sweater it is too. some sweaters, you know, they're more fitted. They're that all over rib style that's back in fashion now. Like the whole body's ribbed and it just shrinks up to nothing, which is I'm not a fan of that style. But I do see it and think, you know, it is an interesting style, and I think some people like it more than I do. But there are other sweaters that are meant to be like really big and boxy and kind of like ease and slouch and kind of like Sunday on the couch kind of sweaters, or just like hanging out, sweatshirty sweaters, and those have a lot more ease. So you just have to kind of check in your closet, check the sweaters that you've made that you like, and see if you can find a kind of average for, in general, the idea of how much ease you might like in a sweater. For me, it's like 3 or 4 inches feels pretty comfortable. And when you think about 3 or 4 inches of ease, it's not just 3 or 4 inches in one place, right? So 3 or 4 inches is going to give you, you know, maybe 1.5 inches or 2 inches on this side, and 1.5 inches or 2 inches on this side, you know, just, it's going to be spread out around the circumference of the sweater. So it's, even if 4 inches sounds like a lot, it's not once you add it to the entire circumference of a sweater. So one thing to think about with ease is how much you like on average. It can help you determine the sizing for your sweater. The other trick, of course, is that a lot of sweater patterns either do or don't have ease built in, so read them carefully, because sometimes they'll say choose your, you know, measure your bust size, and then, you know, choose a sweater with 4 more inches of ease or something like that. So you got to kind of read how the designer has expected you to interact with the pattern. Interesting thing, I was just in a class with Kate Atherley on Zoom maybe a couple weeks ago. It was a really great class about grading patterns. You know, how do you take a pattern that's one size and grade it up or down to different sizes. And she was saying, and I've heard this from a bunch of different designers and a bunch of different sweater knitters at this point, she was saying, you know, your bust size is a very old-fashioned way to check the size of a sweater. And I think, given my experience, she's actually very right about that. And that she was talking about the kind of upper bust measurement, you know, just underneath your armpits but above your bust is actually a better measurement, or your cross back measurement, you know, how wide your shoulders are, can actually be a more accurate measure for what size you need. The trick about that is that even if it's true, and a lot of us know that it might be true, designers and patterns are still coming out with sizing that is relative to a bust size. So we need to kind of change the industry to accept those different ideas about how to measure bodies so that you can get a better fit. And that's going to take a little while. So you're still probably going to see mostly bust measurements in the patterns that you're working with. But you can always go to the pattern schematic to figure out what the designer is thinking about in terms of cross-back measurement, or you can even do a stitch count. Like if you can get into the pattern, you can find out how many stitches there are at this point in the pattern, you know, maybe 1 inch or 2 above where you might divide for the sleeves. You can count the number of stitches, divide by your gauge, and then you can get a sense, even if it's not in the schematic, of what that designer is assuming might be an upper bust measurement. So there are ways around it, but unfortunately right now we're still seeing that bust measurement being the main sizing kind of metric in patterns, so it's always a little bit tricky. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. If you have comments about how you size your sweaters, how you choose the size that you're going for, how you do you always measure your body? Do you remeasure your body? Do you work from a swatch? How closely? All those kinds of questions. I'd just love to have a discussion going in the comments here, and then I'll throw some a Ravelry thread up for us to talk about sweater sizing and how we guesstimate or get it right or don't get it right when we try to size our sweaters and figure out our ease and all that kind of stuff. So it's always interesting, and I've knit a lot of sweaters. I'm up in my 50s now at this point, 50 some sweaters, and it still happens. You don't pay enough attention, or you misjudge something, or you get in your mind, in your own head about something, and you're like, I don't think it's the right size. Things happen. You reknit. But as someone said I think on my Instagram, someone said, yeah, but the cool thing is you get to spend more time with the yarn and knit the sweater again. I'm like, yeah, I had fun reknitting this. It's really relaxing no matter what I'm doing. As long as I'm knitting, I'm happy. So, yeah, So this is my Nacre from Emilie Lewis, and hopefully by the next episode it will be complete. I'm really excited about it. The yarn is very light, and I love her design. I did a tubular cast on up here for the collar, and I just think tubular cast-ons are so beautiful and finished, and they just make it look so pretty. And I think that the yarn is delicate enough. It's I think held together it's closer to like a DK weight, but it's delicate enough that, you know, the finishing look of the ribbing here and the ribbing for the button bands, it just makes it look like kind of professional. And I love sweaters that end up looking, you know, of course handmade, but not necessarily homemade. Like they really do have some touches to them that make them look polished, and that makes me, as a knitter, it makes me feel pretty happy. So I'm excited about this one. I'm almost to the point where I'm going to add some ribbing and then onward to the sleeves. So next time, I promise, hopefully. I shouldn't promise, but I'm hoping next time I'll have it all finished up. So those have been our tales of woe from the last couple of weeks, and also hopefully a little bit of help, because I did put up those videos about substituting yarn. I put up another one about, you know, a guide to hand-dyed yarns to understand what's going on with the different colors that you might see in hand-dyed yarns. So yeah, hopefully there's a little bit of help out there, and if you have suggestions or ideas about how you best size your sweaters, let's get that conversation going over on Ravelry so that fewer of us will have tales of woe. Anyway, I will see you in a couple of weeks, so in the meantime, take care. Bye-bye.